Testing, testing. Good morning. It's September 17th. We're here for our regularly scheduled county commissioner meeting. We have a full slate of commissioners, our county administrator, Mr. Danzel, and our clerk of the board, Ms. Alvarez. So at this time, I'll call the meeting to order and ask everybody to please rise and join in the pledge. First item on the agenda is the adoption of the current agenda. Yes. Mr. Danzel.
I was wondering if one of the members of the board could add just a short closed session at the end of the meeting for McKinsey.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of the agenda as presented with one exception, and at the end of the meeting to add a closed session.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second for the adoption of the agenda with a closed session at the end of the meeting. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, takes us down to public comment. Is there anybody in the room for public comment? Come forward, please.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Sorensen Peterson, and I'm a special education teacher in the Pasco School District, and I serve as the coordinator for the Pasco Transition Center. In this role, I have the privilege to work with a group of amazing young adults with disabilities, ages 18 to 22. We support them in developing independent living and vocational skills as they prepare for life after high school. I'm here today because I'm deeply concerned about the vote last Wednesday to not renew Franklin County's contract with the Benton County for providing human services. Many of the students with disabilities in our district, as well as their families, currently rely on services provided through this bi-county agreement. Under this partnership, the Benton County Department of Human Services has served as county coordinator for the Developmental Disabilities Administration's supported employment and community inclusion programs. They also coordinate child development services, subcontract with the local parent coalition, provide transition services, Special Olympics, Spanish parent-to-parent supports, and technical assistance through the Washington Initiative for Supported Employment. These are not optional services. They are critical supports that directly impact the lives of Pasco students and their families. At the Pasco Transition Center, several of our students are already connected with Benton County programs, such as Job Foundations, and we're soon to participate in the School to Work program. These are life-changing opportunities to help young adults with disabilities secure meaningful employment and community inclusion. My question to you today is simple but urgent. What is Franklin County's plan to ensure these essential services continue now that the bi-county agreement is no longer in place? Our families look to us for guidance and reassurance, and as educators, we need to be able to tell them what supports will be available moving forward. I urge you to provide clarity and, more importantly, to provide prioritize the continuation of these vital services so that students with disabilities in Franklin County are not left behind. Thank you for your time and your leadership on this matter.
Thank you. Is there anybody else for public comment? Is there anybody on the telephone? I see nobody else coming forward. Move down to approval of the consent agenda, and I believe there are 5 items on the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of consent agenda items 1 through 5 as presented.
Second.
There's been a motion, a second for the 5 items on the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Takes us down to regular business, presentation by the Washington State Auditor, 2024 Fisc Financial and Federal Exit Conference.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing time for us this morning to share the results of the county's financial and federal audit My name is Debbie O'Leary, and I was the audit lead for the county's audit. And I'm joined by Jenny Waltman, the audit manager for our Tri-Cities office, and Sarah Bell, an auditor from our office who worked on the county's audit. We conducted a financial statement audit for fiscal year 2024 for the period of January 1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2024. The objective of a financial statement audit is to issue an opinion as to whether the information included in the financial statements can be relied on to make decisions. And we're issuing an unmodified, clean audit opinion on the county's financial statements, which means the financial statements are reliable and presented without material misstatements. We'd also like to share our audits are conducted in accordance with government auditing standards, which require that we gain an understanding of the county's internal controls or processes that it goes through to prepare financial statements for audit. And then if we identify a weakness or a concern with that process that could or did result in significant errors in the financial statements, we would be required to bring those to your attention and include that information in the report. During the audit, we did not identify any concerns in the county's processes that were required to be brought to your attention. Last, our audit standards require us to consider compliance with applicable laws, regulations, contracts, grant agreements where non-compliance might affect the fair presentation of the financial statements. And you'll see in the report, it indicates we did not identify any instances of non-compliance. As part of our audit, we also conducted follow-up procedures on the prior audit finding issued over financial reporting. So we conducted a number of procedures to follow up on the issue, which included reviewing the HAPO operation fund balances, making sure revenues and expenditures were reported in the correct fund and account government-wide, and then reviewing the schedule of federal expenditures to make sure all of the federal programs are reported correctly. And then a summary of the prior audit finding, including the county's corrective actions that were taken, is included in the audit report. And we appreciate the county's responsive action that it took. It allowed us to include in our report that the county has fully corrected this issue from the prior audit. In relation to our financial statement audit, professional standards require that we share whether there are material or large misstatements that were identified and subsequently corrected by management. Again, we're happy to share there were no material misstatements identified during the course of this audit. We're also required to communicate whether there are any uncorrected misstatements that remain in the audited financial statements. And we've included a list of those items in the exit packet that accompanies this presentation. The items were minor. They don't impact the overall opinion being issued for the county's financial statements. As part of the financial statement audit, audit standards require auditors to evaluate the possibility that management may be able to circumvent certain controls. Our evaluation found no instances of circumvention. We also conducted a federal grant compliance or single audit for the same period. The objective of this audit is to determine if the county materially complied with the requirements of receiving federal funding. We're issuing an unmodified, clean audit opinion on the county's compliance with federal grant requirements, which again is the opinion you want to receive. And it just provides that assurance that the federal funds were spent in accordance with their intended purpose. Our audits are conducted in accordance with uniform guidance, and those standards require that we gain an understanding of the county's process it goes through to ensure federal grant requirements are followed. And then again, if we identified any issues with those processes, we would be required to communicate those to you and bring those to your attention. We did not identify any issues that we are required to bring to your attention. So in conducting federal grant compliance audits, we select enough federal grant programs for audit to satisfy the coverage requirements set by federal guidelines. So in assessing this requirement, we identified these two programs to review: the Highway Planning and Construction Program, and then the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Program. These programs combined represent about 70% of the total federal expenditures for the county for 2024. And then again, our audit found the county complied with the requirements of receiving the federal funding for both of these programs. We have just a few closing remarks. First, the cost of our financial federal audit is expected to be within the estimate we provided previously. We'd like to thank the county for its timely response to audit requests that allows us to progress with our audit efficiently and remain within those budgeted amounts. I'd also like to mention we're still in the process of completing the county's 2024 accountability audit. We'll have a separate exit conference for that audit once we complete our review. And then we've also included information on the county's next audit. That one will cover fiscal year 2025 and will be conducted in 2026. The estimate for that is also included in the exit packet. We expect the county's report to be published on our website within the next week or so, and there's information on how to sign up for notification when the county's report is published. That information is also in the exit packet. We'll also be sending a customer service survey, and we do encourage you, as well as anyone that participated in the audit, to complete the survey, as all feedback is helpful in improving our services. We like to know what worked well during the audit and any areas that we can improve on. And that concludes our presentation. I'd like to open it up if there are any questions.
Questions, commissioners? I don't believe, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ms. O'Leary, for being here and presenting this to us. I had a question for you in relationship to the cost of the audit. It appears that your estimation for next year's audit will increase in cost to Franklin County by more than 39%. I wondered if you could help us understand that.
Jenny, do you have any feedback on that one? I think that the cost of our audit is based on the same budgeted hours for each area, the financial, federal, and accountability audit. Sometimes that can vary if we aren't sure how many federal programs we have to audit, but I'll turn it over to Jenny. Maybe she has some more feedback on that.
Yeah, that's correct, Debbie. We are a little bit more conservative budgeting, and sometimes the county might have more than one or two federal programs. There have been times where we've had to audit 3 federal programs. So we're just erring on the side of caution and providing you with a budget that could be more than it might be. And then if that changes, then of course, when we have the insurance conference and the next audit cycle, we'll share that with you and explain why the audit is last.
I appreciate the conservative estimate. I just don't understand why that the price from a known process would increase by more than 39%. As we're a county that runs a very, very lean budget, and this next budget does not look to improve for us. A 39% increase on a non-optional issue for us is I don't understand, and yeah, clarity would be helpful. No further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Questions? No questions? Okay, well, thank you very much for that. And just because you've put that in there as an estimate doesn't mean that's what you're going to charge us, correct? Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, because
That's correct.
yeah, we don't have any more COVID money coming in, federal programs right now. I don't know if we're going to receive much in federal funds. So hopefully we don't see that increase. Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. Takes us to continuation of a closed record appeal and closed record public hearing. We will now open the continued hearing for the closed record appeal and closed record hearing for the Cherrywood Planned Unit Development, file number appeal 2025-04, SEPA 2025-02, and PUD 2025-01. For the record, this is a combined closed record appeal and discussion hearing on the Planning Commission recommendation for deliberation only. So Commissioner Baumann, Commissioner Mullen, have you had any ex parte communication you need to disclose involving this matter or any reason to recuse yourself from these public proceedings?
No, sir.
No.
We will now proceed with the deliberations.
And good morning, Board Chair. For the record, Jeff Briggs with the Prosecutor's Office. I was asked to assist in guiding this process. I did have a draft ordinance sent to me from Wes McCart on Monday, and I did some edits to it, so I've passed that around. What this ordinance would achieve is it would approve the PUD, effectively denying the appeal on that recommendation from the Planning Commission. And you succinctly stated where we're at in the process, Chair. We are at the deliberation stage. And because this is a planned unit development, we need to make findings as to the planned unit development section of the code itself. But because a planned unit development is also a subdivision and a site-specific rezone, I also included findings under those sections of Franklin County Code. So the first part of this ordinance just sort of walks through the history. That's all the whereas clauses in there, and really what we're getting at is on page 6, Exhibit B, which is talking about what our findings of fact are, and I organize those findings of fact, and then below the findings of fact are the conditions of plat approval. So I organized those findings of fact by the sections of code that they pertain to for ease of reference. So the first set of findings would be relative to plan unit development specifically. The second section is for preliminary plat approval. The third portion would be for the site-specific rezone. Then along with that, we have our conditions of approval. Keep in mind, any condition of approval should be based upon either a section in Franklin County Code or a SEPA policy. If it's based on a SEPA policy, it needs to be reasonably related to some impact of the development and reasonably capable of being achieved by the applicant. So with that, I'll go back to the top of the order here. Looking at findings of fact under the Plan Unit Development Ordinance, and thanks again to Wes McCart for assisting in this. Finding number 1 would be the Plan Unit Development, District Development will be compatible with nearby developments and uses. There are a couple of sub parts below that as well. Subparagraph A says that these 3 residential subdivisions, there are 3 residential subdivisions within 1 mile radius of the subject property, including 2 along Columbia River and 1 abutting the site to the southeast. These subdivisions range in size from 22 to 36 lots, with lot sizes ranging from 0.74 acres to 0.137 acres. The property is bordered to the north and south by land in the RC1 and RC5 districts. So if the board would want to, does the board elect to adopt that finding, or would you care to deliberate more?
Commissioners?
So as I walk through the packet that was provided to us on this closed record hearing, I don't believe I have a lot to add to the conversation that was had. I think that it would be wise of us to walk through each of the appeal points. I guess there was 8 points made, and I think that it would be good for us to walk through those and answer those. I guess I would defer to Commissioner Mullen if he has anything to add.
I don't have anything to add at this point, no.
And this is the first point of those 8 that Mr. Briggs just went over.
Well, these are the findings that are required
Right.
to approve the plan unit development. And so by doing so, you would be effectively denying the appeal. I did not walk through each of the bases for appeal, although that's fine to discuss during deliberation. My suggestion is, though, that the end result be that we make findings consistent with the criteria for approval for plan unit development, preliminary plat approval, and a site-specific rezone.
So I would agree with your point on the findings of fact as you described on number 1 there. Yes.
Okay.
And I would agree also.
So on finding of fact number 2, and again for plan unit developments, peripheral treatment ensures proper transition between PUD uses and nearby external uses and developments. We go on to describe that the project will implement concrete blocks and landscape buffers between adjacent residential areas to the north and south. Future planned adjacent uses are for residential subdivisions of 1 to 5 dwelling units per acre, consistent with the adjacent RC1 and RC5 districts to the north and south. Additionally, the subdivision is separated from adjacent agricultural uses to the east by the Bureau of Reclamation and SCIBID, South Columbia Bureau Irrigation District Canal, and proposed open space within the subdivision.
I would agree with that finding. The peripheral treatment ensures the proper transition.
Okay. Third finding would be the development will be consistent with the comprehensive plan and the purposes of the proposed PUD district.
Yes.
Yes?
I agree with that. Yes.
And this is the most redundant one. You'll find it in all 3. The public health, safety, and welfare have been served.
Yes.
Yes.
And this is based on the Group A water system, which will be a condition of final plat approval, that actually gets approved. Emergency vehicle access and adequate stormwater facilities and other things such as septic, which is covered by the health code. There's sort of a bonus, pun intended, condition or finding of fact you need for a PUD when you're giving a density bonus. We have to make a specific finding if we're allowing, which this proposal does request a density bonus. We need to make a finding that there's unique design features and these promote the purposes of the PUD ordinance, and therefore we believe there's adequate evidence in the record to support up to 20% density bonus.
I would agree with that finding as you presented it. Yes.
I also agree with it.
Now we're on to the findings for preliminary plats. This is going to sound redundant, and again, it's my apologies for that. Adequate provisions have been made for public health, safety, welfare, and open spaces, drainage ways, roads, alleys, and other public ways, water supply, sanitary waste, parks, playgrounds, and other public needs.
Agreed.
Yes.
The proposed subdivision does contribute to the orderly development and land use patterns in the area and assures safe walking conditions for students.
Yes.
Yes.
The public use and interest will be served by permitting the proposed subdivision.
Yep.
Yep.
The proposed subdivision does conform to the general purposes of any applicable policies or plans which have been adopted by the Board of County Commissioners, including, but not limited to, the comprehensive plan and its resource land designations, critical area protections, and zoning requirements, including zoning overlays.
Yes.
Agreed.
The proposed subdivision does conform to the comprehensive plan and zoning requirements. Sorry, I'm laughing because it's so redundant.
Yep.
And zoning
Yes.
requirements, okay. But that's literally what our code says. And the proposed subdivision does conform to the general purposes of Title 16. For everyone who doesn't have our code memorized, that's our subdivision ordinance.
Agreed, yes.
So now we're going, transitioning to findings of fact for site-specific rezones. The proposal is in accord with the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan.
Yes, it is.
The effect of the proposal on the immediate vicinity will not, sorry, it says will be material detrimental. That's a typo. It should be will not.
It will not be materially detrimental.
If we could interlineate that in the document,
Okay.
whichever becomes the final version. That's on page 8, finding 13. So we just need will not be detrimental. There is merit and value in the proposal for the community as a whole.
Yes,
Agreed.
Conditions should be imposed in order to mitigate any significant adverse impacts as set forth below. These are our conditions of approval.
yes,
Agreed.
Concomitant agreement should not be entered between the county and the applicant.
that's correct.
Okay. Now we go to conditions of approval. I have not modified any of these. I just consolidated them in this spot. So these are all very familiar from our hearing as well. The first batch, and I numbered these sequentially, just so we would, know what we're talking about here. But the first batch is from the health district.
So,
Go ahead.
Mr. Briggs, should we read all of these into the record?
We could, however, because these have not been altered, they're already in the record. I don't know if that's necessarily, I haven't proposed any new conditions. So what might be more beneficial for the board is to, because the applicant certainly knows, any member of public who's interested and has material certainly knows, maybe just to discuss what we're modifying, if anything, what we're adding, if anything, keeping in mind that anything we add or modify must be based upon our code or a SEPA policy.
And so this has all been a part of the record and it has been unmodified.
Correct, and I haven't
So-
changed any of this.
What would we do to continue through this?
I think the finding of fact that conditions should be imposed is probably sufficient. I mean, we just talked about,
So-
and then we'd say that these are the conditions we're imposing.
So these findings of fact that have been previously presented to us, I do find they should be imposed as presented.
I agree.
Okay, and as a result of that, the appeal would be denied, because the appeal, for various reasons, is challenging multiple findings of fact that the board just adopted, notably noncompliance with the comprehensive plan, I think is a big one, and the nebulous health, safety, and welfare finding as well, based on traffic and other impacts. So it sounds like the board disagrees, and so now, sorry, we're kind of doing this in reverse order. If we go back to what is being ordained by this document, section 1, and this is on page 3. So sorry about jumping around. Page 3 indicates the appeal's denied, and that's based upon the findings of fact and conditions the board found in Exhibit B. And section 2, preliminary plat approval is granted. That section 3 indicates that approval will be for 5 years. Section 4 indicates that construction must commence within, and this is of the infrastructure, roads and whatnot, stormwater, things like that, within 1 year. Section 5 indicates the zoning map would be altered, and section 6 indicates the ordinance shall become effective immediately upon signature.
So I agree with that, and I think it would be good for us to walk through the 8 points in the appeal to provide clarity for
Sure.
the appellate and for the applicant. So, you okay with that, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So, on issue number 1, the Issue number 1 of the appeal is, it states that staff and contractors from AHBL on both the SEPA and the PUD proposal provided biased, misleading, false, and inaccurate information that present the appearance of unfairness in favor of the developer and skew the judgment of the Planning Commission. And I take exception to that, and I find that under RCW 4236, the appearance of fairness doctrine, the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners both addressed any issue of recusal before any hearing proceeding, and no objection was heard as to anyone's participation in either hearing, and find no basis for furthering issue number 1.
I agree.
I do take exception to the accusation that AHBL does not act in a professional manner. They work for many of the jurisdictions in our community, and I was disappointed in that. Issue number 2 states that the proper procedure and level of accuracy and professionalism were not followed through this process and its recommendation. And again, I find that exception to that. I find that although minor errors were made by both sides throughout the process, corrections were made publicly, and many errors were differences in opinion and non-substantive, and find no basis for furthering issue number 2.
I agree.
Issue number 3 states a determination should not have been made based on the information provided on the SEPA checklist, and it was incomplete, procedurally incorrect, and done showing bias to move a project through the West McCart signature on May 8, 2025, coming 8 days before the signature by the Health Department approval. And with that one, I find the determination of a SEPA DNS is not challengeable under Franklin County Code 18.04, as well as Washington Administrative Code 197-11, or RCW 43.21C, and that no specific mitigation measures have been challenged on the project recommendation, and that there is no basis for furthering issue number 3.
I agree.
Issue number 4 states that the information was withheld from the public, and it was withheld from the public, and contracted planners acting as staff are biased and did not provide an analysis of the information, but instead promoted the proposal that over 300 pages of information regarding the water project was withheld, and the 90 pages of water project included in the SEPA documentation doesn't meet requirements for a SEPA determination. And with that, I find that no information was withheld from the public, and that the recommendation before them is conditioned on a Group A water system being approved prior to final plat approval, and that there is no basis for furthering issue number 4.
I agree.
Issue number 5. Issue 5 states that information was not provided to the public after requests were made per our analysis of applicants' answers and staff findings. And with that, I find the evidence to the contrary that all comments were submitted into the record, and that additional information toward a final plat approval was made public during the application and hearing processes, and that there is no basis for furthering issue number 5.
Agreed.
Issue number 6 states that note the unfair practice where the developer and developer's lawyer both received more than the allotted 5 minutes, while all opposing comments were cut short despite the rules read at the beginning, that this gives the appearance of favoritism and biased treatment. And with this, I find that the staff report is not advocating for the applicant, and that all applicants are provided with ample time to present their project and the merits of the project in front of the Planning Commission, and therefore there is no basis for furthering issue number 6. And I would add to that the applicant is not a member of the general public and subject to the timing that is put in place. And an applicant needs ample time to present their project, and that was what was done on issue number 6.
Agreed.
Issue number 7 states that the PUD or the planned unit development was recommended for approval based on false statements, inaccurate statements, and misrepresentations of Franklin County Code. This planned unit development is more homes, 94, and more dense, half acre, as opposed to Underwood's 2/3 of an acre, and farther out from the city, 5.1 miles, than any of the 2 previous planned unit developments passed by Franklin County. This is a creeping accommodation where they are abusing the ordinance of a planned unit development. And with that, I find that the planned unit development proposal is within the Columbia River West limited area of more intense rural development, or LAMRD, and is consistent with the development regulations and comprehensive plan, and therefore, there is no basis for furthering issue number 7.
Agreed.
Issue number 8 states that the planned unit development does not meet the 4 basic requirements of a planned unit development, and staff did not tell the Planning Commission and of those omissions or share the information that looked bad upon the project per our attached document describing the errors and omissions. And with that, I find that the PUD proposal is compatible with nearby developments, does ensure transitions with nearby uses, is consistent with the comprehensive plan and the purposes of the planned unit development district, and that the public health, safety, and welfare will be served. I further find that all 4 conditions have been met, and therefore there is no basis for issue number 8.
I agree.
I further find that the subdivision is consistent with RCW 58.17.110, parentheses 2, and approval of the subdivision and its dedication, and the factors to be considered as conditions of approval, and that the application before us appears to be in the public use and interest to approve this planned unit development.
Agreed.
I move that the appeal on the PUD, the SEPA and PUD is denied, and that the preliminary plat approval for the Cherrywood Estates planned unit development filed under PUD 2025-01 is granted in accordance with the provisions of the Franklin County Development Regulations and is recommended by the Planning Commission with the 4 findings of facts and 10 conditions of approval and the 7 SEPA mitigation measures that the county's Planning and Building Department is directed to affix the new zoning designation to the official zoning map, and that the final development shall substantially conform to the layout and configuration on the record.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to deny the appeal. Is there any further discussion?
If I could add
Mr.
one thing.
Briggs.
I think there might be more than 7 findings, and
And matters of fact?
right, I would, whatever's in Exhibit B, I think I added some of the findings were in whereas clauses, and so I moved those down into the exhibit, so all the findings are in the same spot, but it added more findings, I think, than what was originally presented.
Do we
So
need
it's
to add
Exhibit
that into the
B.
emotion? or-
Right, maybe approve it pursuant to the findings of fact and conditions as set forth in Exhibit B. Sorry.
Give me
B.
just one moment, Mr. Chairman, I'll modify that.
Do you want to pull your motion so we can have a new motion with,
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, I would withdraw my motion.
okay. I'll wait for the new motion.
So, Mr. Chairman, I have a new motion here. Mr. Chairman, I move that the appeal on the SEPA and PUD is denied, and that preliminary plat approval for the Cherrywood PUD filed under PUD 2025-01 is granted in accordance with the provisions of the Franklin County Development Regulations and as recommended by the Planning Commissions with the findings of fact, the conditions of approval, and the SEPA mitigation measures that the county's Planning and Building Department is directed to affix the new zoning designation to the official zoning map, and that the final development will substantially conform to the layout and configuration on the record and with the conditions as exhibited in Exhibit B attached to our packet.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second for the denial of the appeal. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Briggs. Thank you, Mr. McCart.
You're welcome.
That moves us down to a public hearing. Excuse me. Oh, and at this time, I'll close the closed record hearing and appeal. So at this time, we'll move down to a public hearing, Resolution 2025-270, rebranding planning and building as a planning and building economic development department. At this time, I will open the public hearing.
Thank you,
Mr. Danzel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. Here today to propose, and in conjunction and working with Council Briggs about strategic rebranding of our planning and building department. The new name would be Planning and Economic Development Department. The change, the way I see it, is more than just a name. It's a fundamental shift in our approach to county growth, intended to better align our department's mission with the long-term prosperity of our community. The current name, while accurate, does not fully encompass the scope of our work beyond its potential, or its potential. And I'll say this also, this aligns with Director McCart's goals, long-term goals, to bring in another long-term planner. I don't think I'm letting the cat out of the bag there. The current name, while accurate, yeah, okay. Our department's responsibilities under this new rebranding would extend far beyond the technical aspects of just planning and permitting. The building in general is obviously a key driver of economic activity, shaping the landscape for business investment, job creation, and community vitality. A couple of reasons that I think it would be a wise call to do this is it's a more accurate reflection of our mission. It would improve interdepartmental collaboration. It's a more competitive and modern approach. It's a better way to utilize some of the economic development funds that we get. And so I'd like to thank Council Briggs for your pretty much spearheading this, and also to Director McCart for being so welcoming and with the idea that we're kind of heading in a new strategic direction. And with that, I'll end my comments, and I appreciate you mentioning it is a public hearing, so members of the public can come up and say
Exactly.
yay or nay.
But first, we'll hear from the commissioners. Commissioners, any questions?
I think this is a good step. Thank you for bringing this, Mr. McCart. Appreciate this next step. One thing I did wanted to note, or just, and I'm not sure exactly what this should look like. I'm assuming we should do something maybe like a press release or something, that the building department is within planning. So with the new name, just don't want that to get lost in the shuffle, that people, recognize that the building department is not going away, but it'll be within that same organization, and look forward to supporting you in this next step.
If there's no other comments or questions by the commissioners, it is a public hearing. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on this? Okay, seeing nobody come forward, nobody on the phones? No. Nobody on the phones, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of Resolution 2025-270, rebranding the planning and building as the Planning and Economic Development Department.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second for Resolution 2025-270, rebranding planning and building as Planning and Economic Development Department, but it is including building. We're not losing our building, which it's all encompassed. So with that, is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And at this time, I'll close the open public hearing. Next, we'll move down to the Commissioner Administrator updates. Mr. Danzel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I just got to say, in back-to-back weeks, big thank you on behalf of the people that I've heard from and worked with here at the county, to both Commissioner Mullen and Commissioner Didier for potatoes and corn. And I just wanted to say, when you guys get around to, beef and bacon and all the rest, I'm here too for that. No, but I've heard a lot of thank yous for that. And I can attest to the fact that I had some of that corn and some of those potatoes, and that's all I had to eat. I didn't need any other thing. They were enormous and they were fantastic. So thank you very much for that, gentlemen. Met with each commissioner individually, as you all know, to go over our agenda. Met with Mike out at the HAPO Center, had a good about hour and a half meeting out there. an underheralded person out there is Joanna. So if you ever get a chance to go and shake hands with somebody, I would go out and shake her hand because she's squared away and just does a good job of not just parsing through everything, but being able to do so with the benefit of the community in mind. So I was really impressed with her. We held our department head meeting. I attended the Ben Franklin Health Advisory Board meeting, partially on the phone and driving there because I was late, then partially in person. So, and then as we get into my portion of the workshop, this will all make a lot more sense, but I met with the accounting staff in the auditor's office, as well as forwarded and met with the some of the treasurer's staff. I didn't meet directly. I forwarded a document on the financial policies to the treasurer's staff, and we spoke about it a little bit at a budget review committee meeting. And so attended a budget review committee meeting. Everything that we've been talking about is apropos. It's interesting to look at the requests in the budget compared to where we are financially. And we just can't, we're not going to be able to fulfill everybody's wish on that. In fact, I don't know how many we will, but just wanted to give you a heads up on that. And I will provide the budget documentation, our cash position, where we're at on staffing percentage-wise in each department. I'll get all that to you after the meeting, so you can take home and digest and be able to fully understand what our cash position is versus budget. There's a huge misnomer in that, well, we've got budgeted funds versus what's in the checking account. So that's my report, and as always, if there's anything that you guys would like me to be working on, just let me know.
Thank you.
Can I say one other thing?
Absolutely.
It's been a while since I've been here, and I know that at certain times in the past that Franklin County has been under the spotlight, but I've never worked for 3 better commissioners in my life. And the support that you all have shown me to dig in and to go after things, it means a great deal to me. And I just wanted to say I appreciate working for you. It's fun to come to work every day with you as my boss. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Bauman.
Met with our administrator for preparation for this meeting, and with that, I'll leave that as my report.
What?
Don't go back on this, mister.
Better document.
Commissioner
Shortest.
Mullen. We got to write this down.
All right.
Document this date, will you?
So I too met with Mr. Danzel on the agenda meeting. Also had discussion on range area and open range and trying to decipher what the regulations are and where they are in effect. So, and that will conclude my report.
I also got a phone call. We're seeing an increase in the value of owning and raising cattle, because it's one of the commodities, the only commodity that is hot right now. I think we're going to see more and more of this in our county, and so I think we need to readdress this ordinance, this open range policy. And then I think we also need to take a really close look at the Code of the West. And we need to adopt the Code of the West for Franklin County. It's just a statement about what our county is all about, and it's rural, and it's farming, and it's ranching, and that's the heart of Franklin County. And I think we really need to look at the Code of the West and possibly adopt that. Had my pre-agenda meeting with Mr. Danzel, and I so appreciate you taking time, meeting with all 3 commissioners privately, and getting us up to breast of the meeting. The meetings are going smoothly. We're not having any hiccups. Everything's going really well. I appreciate that. And then I missed the Ben Franklin Transit meeting. I believe Mr. Bauman did too, because he had other appointment. But I've asked Mr. Mullen if he wouldn't mind taking over my role on the Ben Franklin Transit, because I'm getting nowhere on the fiscal responsibility of the transit system and the cost per passenger that we're paying for this. I'm hoping Mr. Mullen will take over my position on the transit so I don't embarrass myself anymore over there. I'd also like to report that Inslee served as governor for 12 years. And in his 12-year term, our taxes went up $62.3 billion. Ferguson, on the other hand, with this legislative session, first year, spent $40.2 billion.
And it's increased $1 billion a month during his tenure.
It is an incredible assault on the private sector, and I reiterate what our founding fathers said in one of their usurpations of the king. He has erected a multitude of new offices, sent out his hither swarm of officers to harass our people and to eat out their substance. We, the people of the state of Washington, need to stand against this governor. And we got to do what we can to stop this assault on our ability to work, earn, and hopefully keep a little bit for ourselves, but to pay these taxes. It is it's overbearing. It's uncalled for. And when you see the way they're spending it, it's unjust. That's the end of my report.
Mr. Chairman,
Correspondence? Do we have any Mr. Bowen?
just wondered if you would get us what the chairman shared, the Code of the West and our range policy that, that we may need to look at, and be good to get them in our hands so we can start evaluating that. Thank you.
I was going to say, Director McCart this morning sent me his former version of Code of the West. So we've got a great working product. I look forward to working with Wes on that, making it maybe be more applicable to Franklin County. But yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, correspondence.
Well, this is the one that you're not going to want to see. This is the letter from Jennifer Wagner explaining that she is going to be leaving us. So
Already seen it.
you already saw it.
Yeah.
All right. Good.
It's a great loss for Franklin County, but yes, Mr. Danzel.
You took the words out of my mouth.
Yeah. So, I wish her the best. We're going to miss her. She was a great asset for Franklin County. She will be here for a short time. Her last day is October 22nd. Or no, October 17th is her last day. So I propose that we have a little farewell get-together for her.
And she just needs to come back at the normal time in December and decorate and prepare us for the Christmas season.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, may I propose something? Maybe you tie the one to the other. We'll throw a party if you promise to come back and decorate. No, no, I agree. She definitely deserves a good send-off, and we're going to miss her.
Yeah. All righty. That's all the correspondence we have today? Yes. Okay, we're down to public comment. Anybody for public comment?
Good morning, gentlemen. Michelle Andrews from Franklin County. I was very informed by the auditor's report today, and as a statement as a taxpayer, it makes me very curious that $1.5 billion were wasted in one single program in King County. I could use that money here for my juvenile program. I think King County owes me some money, because my taxpayer money went to the state and then to King County, then to grants and NGOs that are not accountable to the state. I would like you to write those ladies and ask them where the money is, and do a severe research and arrest or whatever it takes to get that money back. Because now we're hearing from Bob Ferguson that $9.5 billion isn't enough. It deeply incenses me. To your last comment, Commissioner, we had to reschedule September 3rd for the First Amendment petitions. The First Amendment petitions were exactly what we used in our history to petition the king when our country was subject to him on his own laws. We're repeating that history. And we had a bloody revolution, but our framers made it so that we could remove people from office when they violated their oath to the Constitution. And I have a review for you, in addition to what we've already prepared, on how severe and how hard those teeth were in the Constitution. And we've lost that tacit historical and foundational use of that. It's not just a matter of taking office and say, oh, I promise to do my best. We have 12 petitions where the Constitution has been violated, and the person that enforces that is the DOJ. I did have a high-level discussion with the legislator that we'd be happy to take those to Harmeet Dillon, but what we need is for counties to look at the process of having a constitutional compliance committee or a public review committee. We use those interchangeably. We already have a resolution where it was passed in another county. We have the bylaws, and we have the training. Nonetheless, those petitions can move forward. They don't have to go through the Secretary of State. They only have to be a citizen, and they can collect those signatures indefinitely, and you never have to turn them over. And that's why my comment last week about going through the courts, petitioning the grievance for removing somebody from office is not losing their liberty, not losing their property, and not losing their life. Those are court issues. But we've been skewed over time to keep running to the courts, and the courts become the tool of a tyrannical government. So please put us back on. Let us move you forward. I have a number of counties that are ready to do so.
Thank you. Is there anybody else for public comment? Nobody on the phone? All righty. Is there a need for executive session?
There is. In fact, I think that there's going to be at least a half hour and potentially more under potential litigation.
Which is the,
4230, 110, 1I.
Mr. Chairman, I would propose that we first start with an executive session under RCW 4230, 110, 1F, and that is received and evaluate complaints or charges against a public officer or employee. And I would propose 10 minutes with the Board of County Commissioners and the County Administrator.
okay,
And that one is unique because it authorizes the employee to require that the hearing be conducted in an open meeting. Yes, I'll read it. To receive and evaluate complaints of charges brought against a public officer or employee. However, upon the request of such officer or employee, a public hearing or meeting open to the public shall be conducted upon such complaint or charge. So I think the employee has the option of having that held in an open public meeting.
would you like this in the open public meeting?
No. I would rather have this done in executive session.
Okay. So at this time, we'll recess into executive session for 10 minutes for RCW 42.30.110, parentheses 1, parentheses F. Yes.
There will be additional need for another 30 minutes.
I agree. Okay.
Should we call that all consecutively so we don't have to come
I
back up?
think we have to call them individually. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
just need to get executive session.
We come out of executive session with no decisions being made. We are going to recess into another executive session, RCW 42.30.110, parentheses 1, parentheses I's, to discuss legal counsel matters relating to agency enforcement actions. For 30 minutes, correct?
Yeah, it's
Good morning. It is 10:41, and on behalf of the Board of Commissioners, I'm reconvening the regular meeting to extend it for 10 additional minutes under the same RCW 42.30.110(1)I. We will resume at 10:51. Good morning, it's 10:52. On behalf of the Board of Commissioners, I'm reconvening the regular meeting to extend it for 10 additional minutes under the same RCW 4230110-1I, potential litigation. At this time, our meeting is scheduled to resume at 11:03.
Eric, real quick, I think Mackenzie was gonna wanna give a little bit of a, I think we're going to close session, I think, right? She was not feeling well.
So we've come out of executive session with no decisions being made. We are back to regular session. Is there any other business for the good of the county? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. And we will move into a closed session. Is she here?
Yes.
30-minute closed session?
I would start shorter. Okay. I'd go 20.
I was thinking 10.
I'm gonna see if I can find it.
So at this time, we'll recess for 5 minutes.
So anyways, yeah, when we were there, I was like, well, shoot, just bring me 2 steaks.
Okay, we have come out of closed session. We are now moving into our workshop. I'm looking for the approval of the workshop agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of the workshop agenda as presented.
Made a motion and a second to accept the workshop agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Takes us down to public comment in the workshop agenda. Is there anybody for public comment? Is there anybody on the phone? Nobody on the phone. Moving right into the workshop, Levy Park, presented by Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. Again, I'm Eric Johnson. I'm with the Columbia Policy Advisors. You've retained us to work on two things, and I'll talk about those shortly. I want to appreciate Director McCart sitting here with me. He's going to take a portion of the presentation on one specific component. I have spent time with both Mr. Briggs and Mr. Dansell as well, talking about this issue. So I'm going to quickly run through this presentation. I know that you have had a long meeting already. I'll give you a little background. We'll talk about Levy Park. I can never remember whether it's Levy or Levy, so we'll just go with Levy. Proposed master plan resort, the Corps of Engineers lease procedures, the concept of reconveyance, options for you to think about, and then we'll have some discussion and direction from the board if you're ready to proceed on that. The activity associated with this was within the scope of work that you contracted for, which said as time permits, I would spend time working on Levy Park, which I have done, and gotten to a point where I think it's time for a decision from the BOCC of how to proceed. And that's really why I am here today to talk about next steps and get your direction. Just to make sure reminds everyone where Levy Park actually is. We're over here in Pasco, going up the Pasco-Colotus Highway. Levy Park then is
Next one.
I'm not sure how many river miles up from the dam, but probably it's about 10 miles out of town. So I actually did bring my pontoon boat over one day and took a nice ride up Lake Sacagawea in my pontoon. Beautiful. Really was beautiful, spectacular. And actually quite a shame that there's not more river access points. So we'll talk more about that as we go through. Levy Park, just from a history perspective, it is 50 acres in its, Levy Park, which is 50 acres. It has historically had use. I had mixed reaction about whether or not it ever had camping or not. I had some people say, yes, it did. And
I have camped there.
Yep, I thought it did. I had other people say, no, it never had camping. But regardless, I thought it did have historical campground. So it's closed in 2025. The Corps has indicated they will be reopening it in 2026. Interestingly enough, I also went back and was doing some research and found different Times article in 2012 that actually talked about some seasonal closures back in 2012 as well. So it has been closed on and off. Right now, in more recent years, it has had limited days operations and generally limited to weekends from Memorial Day to Labor Day. Most recently, there is currently no potable water system because of reported nitrates in the water system there. So there is no potable water system. They actually have the park closed for when it's being irrigated as well. So just something to keep in mind. Again, the park, as you come down into the entrance road, this is the Columbia Plateau Trail operated by the Washington State Parks and Recreation System, and then the existing park within this area. I did meet with the Corps of Engineers to talk about both the fingers as well as Levy Pond, which I do have a picture of later on. These are actually mitigation lands. This would not be part of what the Corps would lease. The Corps is only interested in the leasing of the 50-acre park itself. A little close-up, more close-up of the park itself. As you can see, boat launch in this area over here definitely has become overgrown just in the short period of time. Kind of more of a swimming basin. There is dock moorage facilities over in this area as well for day use. Another dock over here. So I know you all are much more familiar with the facility, but I just wanted, for those that had questions about it. I'm going to pause there. The reason that this question is before you is you received in May a letter from River Ranch Resort, LLC, ran a potential, what I will call a public-private partnership, where the county would take on and secure a lease or some type of property ownership and have a sublease or opportunity for River Ranch Resort to operate Levy Park on behalf of the county as a public park facility that they then would tie in and sync with their proposed master planned resort. So I'll turn it over to Director McCart to talk a little bit more about where this portion of the private portion of this private-public partnership is.
So Commissioners, we currently have an application for a master plan resort for this area. If you got the next map? Yeah, bring the next map up. There we go. So if you look at this,
Yep.
here. So this area generally, I'm going to say about like that, is what they're looking at right now for their master plan resort. They are looking to tie in with the existing Levy Park area and tie in with the amenities there and tie in with the trail that is there. They're looking at an event center, winery, a lot of different components in their master plan resort at this time, including a golf course. This is a part of the comp plan update we will be doing. We've got the amendment for both text and map amendments to contemplate whether or not we want to use to create the master plan resort there. We've got some language changes we need to make in the master plan resort section of the current code to better facilitate this or any other proposal for a master plan resort we get. Those will be legislative decisions. If the master plan resort were to be approved and be applied for to actually happen, a development agreement would have to happen. A development agreement is another legislative action. Usually you want to treat the negotiations quasi-judicial because you don't want negotiations getting out. You will probably appoint somebody to head those negotiations to get that agreement. But again, that agreement is a contract and it is not quasi-judicial. However, we have also just recently, I believe day before yesterday, received an application for the River Ranch Resort to start the golf course. They'd like to put in the golf course and they'd like to get the grading done. So we have a proposal in front of us that requires a special use permit. This is an application that will come before you as a quasi-judicial matter. So beyond telling you I have the application for creating the actual golf course, this cannot be talked about, which puts a little bit of I want to say a little bit of a damper on what Mr. Johnson is doing for behalf of the county in your options because of this quasi-judicial application. It will take us a few months to get this in front of you. I suspect it will be at the end of the year or the first of the year before we finally have it in front of you for your decision. But I want to make you aware of that, and I want to make you aware that it is quasi-judicial application, and you are not to have any conversations, ex parte conversations, about the actual golf course proposal. That's all.
If I could proceed in moving on a little bit, the concept of the public-private partnership really would be that the county would secure either a lease or ownership. We'll talk about those options of Levy Park. We would sublease Levy Park to River Ranch Resort, and River Ranch Resort LLC would take on the redevelopment, operations, and maintenance responsibilities of the facility, which could include and would likely include the construction of a modern marina, water treatment system, year-round operations, and there will be significant repairs necessary to the park to bring it up to modern-day standards. So that's a little bit about that. I did take the opportunity to meet with the Corps of Engineers. There was a group of us that actually did meet on site back in September when I was the interim county administrator. So we had the commander of the Walla Walla district was there. A number of the staff that I have had subsequent meetings with were there. And we talked about the options that were available. There are two options available for what's called out-granted core lands, and that's basically a fancy word for leases. And one of those is a recreational out-grant, which is to local units of government. And so that's one of the options that's available. And the second one is a recreational concession lease that a private party could also take a look at as an option available. There's also an option for a non-recreational private lease. I didn't pursue really any discussions associated with that because that's not an interest here. The other option that's available to the county is to seek reconveyance, which does take congressional action. And there is obviously across the river here with the TRIDEC, I think, has been working for years on shoreline reconveyance. So that's been going on. And that would take congressional action. And that could be initiated either concurrent with trying to secure a lease through the out-grant process, or you could just pursue that separately as well. I wanted to, well, my slide about the options is not sure where it went to, but I'm going to talk about the options that are available to you, and those are outlined and that I've prepared for you to take a look at are outlined in your memorandum. And I'll just kind of walk through those for you to think about and take a look at and stimulate some discussion for us to have considered. The first one really is to provide direction to pursue a recreational out-grant to lease Levy Park. I think if you were to pursue this, you likely would want to enter into an agreement with River Ranch LLC to assure a couple of things. Number one, that there would be funding to pursue this lease application. There is a fee and a charge for that, and that fee and charge does include all of the administrative costs that the Corps itself would incur to review a lease application, and that could actually be quite significant. The second piece that, no, that's fine. Yep, it's good. And that has the potential to be significant, both from a time frame perspective as well as a cost. The time frame for that pursuing in their stated materials is 180 to 240 days from the point they get what I'll call a completed application. Verbally, they talked about 12 to 18 months. It could be longer depending on the studies and reports that they could also require. So this is not a short-term process that you would be entering just to secure an out-granted lease. There is very likely will be a cultural resources environmental review requirement, Section 106, which would look at the cultural resource review, likely a NEPA requirement, including if they talked about any dredging necessary for the marina. I'm sure you were at that point probably talking about an EIS at that point as well. Just to remind you, there are threatened endangered salmon species in that river, so undoubtedly you would be moving into an ESA analysis as well. Ground disturbance analysis, which was one of those pieces that was a little startling to me. I think Commissioner Baumann and I had a quick conversation that I know that I think Kennewick ran into that situation just on a sprinkler head, for example, that you would potentially look at. I can't quite imagine running a park operation, having been in parks, knowing that it might take you 6 months to replace a sprinkler head, particularly in this environment over here. A survey and legal description, the potential for a market study, a feasibility study, a conceptual development plan. All of these would be additional costs if necessary and at the determination of the Corps. So you would probably want to make sure that you had some sort of agreement to assure that the county was not incurring costs associated with this. And we would enter into an agreement about that. And then certainly the commitment to be the subleasee. I don't think the county wants to enter into an agreement that they lease it without the assurance that they are not going to get stuck with the operations of Levy Park. So those would be things that you would want to negotiate in an agreement with the private party. The other option is to not lease, go seek a lease or an out grant, and that is to work with your congressional delegation, a congressional sponsor, to seek reconveyance of Levy Park. You might want to do that in conjunction with something very similar to the commitments that you would want from the private party, whether you got a reconveyance or a lease, so that you was very clear that the costs associated with seeking that property interest as well as the future operation is well defined going in. The next option that I would talk about is clearly when these parks were built back in the 1960s and 70s, there was a tremendous commitment made to this community to have parks and recreational facilities. And there is without a doubt that commitment has not been fulfilled. And this is one park in particular where the recreational opportunities that were first constructed are not the recreational facilities that are there now. And you take a look at what has happened in that period of time. The population in Franklin County alone has gone from about 25,000 to 100,000. The population of the region has tripled in Walla Walla County, Benton County, and Franklin County. And so while that commitment to have this multiple use, including recreation opportunities, was made, it certainly is not being fulfilled to the degree that it once was. So, one of the options would be for the county to actually take the lead in potentially seeking federal funds to restore it back to its original state and the commitment to operate it in the manner in which it was first operated. So that would be another alternative, which is not to seek that opportunity to lease and or to reconvey it, but to seek funding to fulfill the obligation in what some people think is the obligation that was set forward when these dams were first and locks were first constructed. I think the other option is to, which is kind of the do-nothing option. You could also just let it ride and see what the Corps does over time, particularly if they saw a master plan development with a group of homes in more recreational intensity, whether they would actually lean into the project a little bit more in the park and restoring the park and getting the park open more. The last option from my mind is to decline the request at this time. Is that as you take a look at what's happening in terms of still land use decisions that are yet to be made by Franklin County, you have the Planning Commission will have to go through their judicious process to go through to see if they will be recommending forward to you the master plan resort. That decision will then be in front of you about whether to change your comprehensive plan and development regulations to accommodate master plan resorts. So it might be a decision that you still want to wait on. At this time, that you might want to simply say, let's play through, let's see what happens with the land use decisions that have to be made around master plan resort, and proceed at a later time, or simply say at this point we're not interested. So I've tried to be brief and convey what I think are a series of options. There's obviously a number of changes. You could integrate certain components of these options, but I do want to see if either Minister Dancel or Commissioner McCart, who I've worked with a little bit on this project, have anything they want to add, and then take some questions.
Yeah, I'll just say that from my perspective, that to get into any kind of negotiations with the private party at this point, with that special use permit in, it could be very problematic. Could require the fact that all three of you could end up having to recuse yourself from that decision, which is extremely, if I have more than one commissioner has to recuse yourself, how do we make a decision on that? So it could actually hold that project up. So I just, the The long-term goals and the comprehensive plan, I'm not as concerned about, but I am concerned about the application we do have in front of us, since that is absolutely quasi-judicial. So I just want to remind you of that.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I also, I know Jeff Briggs was in on a couple of those conversations too. I don't know if you wanted to add anything to it about any legal worries you might have. But no, I think that it was, I would concur with Mr. McCart. I just see that two things. Number one, congressional support and reconveyance is going to probably be a timely, thing to undertake. And then a lease, if we ever went with like a lease, I'm going to repeat a phrase that I've heard. It could become a mother may I situation where you're just always, I've had experience with that. So, yeah, I think it's well presented. I think that you have options. And then I didn't know if you had anything, Jeff, you wanted to.
No, nothing really to add. I think Eric hit the points or the high points pretty well. We're still kind of evaluating this as well. But it does look, I think the biggest moving part here would be the actual reconveyance itself and getting that. I mean, that seems like a very tall order. So assuming we can get that, seeing how this ties into the cultural practices easement that was talked about. I don't know if this is part of that land that would be subject to that, and where that process is at. I think that'd be interesting to see how those fit together, but no, I don't have a whole lot on this one.
Just to follow up on that, the cultural practice easement you're speaking about is the one that's being negotiated for the shoreline reconveyance that TRIDEC is working on.
Questions, commissioners?
It appears, based on your presentation, by the way, thank you for the thorough effort that you've gone through on this. It appears that there's the potential that option 1, 2, and 3 could happen at the same time in just separate paths towards similar. It appears that an out grant would be likely the quickest, but reconveyance could happen concurrently, likely to take longer. Is that roughly what you see?
Yeah, I think so. You could run all three concurrently. I think that's very true. I think number 2, reconveyance, depending on historically how they seem to have been linked with the WRDA, the Water Resource Development Act, many of the reconveyances, that might, and they don't run WRDA bills every year, so you might have to find a different venue or different bill to put that into. So finding that reconveyance, and then if any indication is how long the Columbia River shoreline reconveyance has taken, that could be a significantly longer process.
Do you believe that we could potentially add this to the efforts that are already underway? Is there a chance to add this to that and be a part of that same bill?
I don't know if there's actively working on a WRDA bill. I think there are other, Congress hangs things on unrelated bills all the time. So.
And I think that's likely
Right.
what the plan
Right.
is for that one. But I just wonder if there's opportunity to join this with that and to significantly shorten the process.
Certainly possible. Yep.
Could you speak to, having been very concerned about this park for a long time, growing up going to this park, I think it's a disgrace, the condition that it's in, the way that it's been taken care of, and it has deteriorated since I was a little guy, all the way to the point that there's the picnic shelter out there, the big one. The shingles have been blown off the roof by the wind, and there's bare wood exposed, which will deteriorate very rapidly, and really, really disappointed in the condition of the park today. Could you speak to, I appreciate Mr. McCart, your concern of doing this. How can we pursue this, but not cause complications with the efforts that the planning and building is working on now?
Well, I think we can do our best to bifurcate them and put that firewall up if that's the direction of the board, to acknowledge that the work that you are doing, and I would continue to remind folks that you would be trying to articulate that regardless of whether this project occurs, the county is going to be in the park business. And if you're prepared to say that, because there could be decisions that are being made at a later point in time that you're going to be confronted with the fact that you are entering into an agreement potentially with someone who may not ultimately get all the things that they are going to do. And will they still want to operate a park and recreational facility that is not associated with the development that they have? And so bifurcating those two decisions the best that you can, and trying to make sure that they all remain legislative decisions and not quasi-judicial decisions. But you can try and work through that. I think the more you think through this, the more you have to start to think about, if we sublease or get this reconveyed, are we prepared to be in the Parks and Recreation business with Levy Park independently of a sublease?
So without crossing that firewall, are they interested in that? If we were to be able to go through these, if we were able to get control of or possession of this facility, and their project, as described, were not to move forward, are they interested? Because you described a marina and some of the things that their wish was to be. Are they interested in doing one without the other?
I don't know the answer to that question. Yeah, sorry.
Commissioner, if I might just add a little bit to that, if you have an agreement with the party that would later be entering into a development agreement, I believe your negotiations on that agreement would have to be very much separate but integrated, in the fact that you're later on, if the master plan resort were to move forward, your development agreement negotiations there would have to include a development agreement or a parks agreement that you've negotiated prior that could be subject to change based on the development agreement. So I think you're talking about two different agreements that at some point are separate, but at some point may very well need to be intertwined, making those negotiations extremely difficult while not trying to cross that line of, are we getting into something that's quasi-judicial? So it's not cut and dry. I just want to say it's a very murky situation.
I don't know if I agree with quite like that. It would appear to me that the first contract would need to stand alone, and the second one could potentially provide integration. And so I do understand, though, the tricky the tricky part of that.
I think, Commissioner Bauman, I think you're right. I mean, you could have an agreement that talks about the park autonomous initially to subsequent agreements you might have with the developer that might then simply be referenced by the next agreement. Which I think is what Commissioner McCart was saying as well.
Yeah, I think all I'm trying to point out is that you're going to want to be extremely thoughtful in negotiating that agreement.
Yeah, it's certainly
so that you don't have that complication down the line.
Yeah, that part I certainly do appreciate.
I would just, I think recognizing and not speaking on behalf of either components, everyone's going to have an out, including probably the developer. And so you'd have to really think that portion of it through as well. And the big reason I'm, sitting here is I'm ready to proceed into the next steps and wanting to make sure the board fully understands what those next steps could mean, whether that's, seeking reconveyance and seeking congressional sponsors and making the commitment that Franklin County wants this park and wants to take on the ownership of it, recognizing your intention hopefully is to have a subleasee to operate it. And then the same thing, and I've had that conversation with the Corps, and they would have to approve the subleasee, but clearly it's a recognition that it would remain a public park open to all.
Yeah, and this is not unique. I know that there's lots and lots and lots of examples. Columbia Park in Kennewick has multiple different subleasees.
Yep.
City of Kennewick runs that facility and then subleases. I know that across the river from this park, you have Charbonneau Park,
Yep.
and similar scenario there. I know if you go down to Crow Butte State Park, there's a similar situation has been there. There's lots of examples.
I think Hood also has probably a sublease concessionaire
Yep.
in it as well.
Yeah, so I know there's lots of examples. I'd love to hear thoughts of my fellow commissioners.
It says here that Levy So it says here that it's owned by the Corps of Engineers. Why doesn't the developer work directly with them, and why get us involved in it?
That's certainly an option that's available to them, which is to pursue a recreational out grant directly. That's certainly an option that's available to them. I think they were looking for that public-private partnership, and maybe I don't want to speak for the developer, but that the Corps may be more supportive of having Franklin County directly. I don't know if that's true or not. But I don't want to speak directly for them. And this puts us into a little bit, I actually had suggested, we actually talked about having the developer here to present, and we ran into this conflict of a quasi-judicial role. And so we're in a little bit of a tricky situation, not trying to speak too much on either behalf of the developer or have the developer here to speak. But that is one of the options, and that's really option 4, which is to support them if they pursue a private agreement, which is one of the options that is available via the recreational out-grant policy that the Corps of Engineers has, where they would enter recreational concession leases to private parties. It just has to remain a public park and recreation opportunity.
Mr. Danzel.
Yeah, and I think, I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but I think the most prudent thing to do here would be to develop a board position so that you can tell Mr. Johnson what you're thinking, where you're wanting to go with it, and so that he's not going off in all these different directions, looking at, can the folks that want it lease it? Do we need to lease it? Are we going to reconvey it? I think it's important to develop a board position to give Eric Johnson, Mr. Johnson,
I guess
direction.
I'll start off with, I just got to ask my fellow commissioners, what's the role of government? I mean, we've got a HAPO center out there that we're still trying to find a way for it. I ain't looking for this county commission to take on any more responsibility, and I think that my point right now would be just to wait and see what transpires and let that private entity go to the Corps and try to perceive or get their agreement with them individually. That's my.
I feel the same way, and we could say that, maybe we support the developer in that endeavor, but I don't want to be in the park service business.
I don't want to be in the park service business either.
I definitely don't want to be in the parks business, and that's where that I'd love to know how to do it with the master concessionaire process. So it appears that, kind of from what you've said, option 4 is the wisest course of action at this time, to be reevaluated potentially down the road.
Absolutely. Mr. Danzel.
One thing that Wes McCart actually brought up that I thought was quite astute is that if that time comes, a lot of the groundwork's been done by Mr. Johnson. So we know kind of some of the considerations, and I think it would be beneficial moving forward if that were to be the board position, so.
What about number 3 and 4 together?
Absolutely. I think number 3, having conversations with the congressional delegation around allocating the appropriate resources or assuring that the Corps allocates appropriate resources to support Levy Park, it would certainly be worthwhile. I look at, from my background in Parks and Rec, I would tell you just to look at the growth, to look at the fact that these park and recreation opportunities generally have been static for, almost 60 years. And yet your population growth of this region has quadrupled in Franklin County alone, has tripled in the region, and you're not seeing a parallel investment into these facilities to support what was one of their core missions when they built these dams.
And I think therein lies the question, is if the people of this county that are coming here, that have lived here, are that anxious for this park, they need to be putting the heat on the congressional delegates to get this thing up to snuff and being usable again. And it's not the commissioners who need to be making this move. It needs to be from the people of this county, and they want a place to recreate. And so they need to be heard, calling their delegation.
So I think at this time, what I've heard, and Mr. Dansel, I think, asked for that direction, which is the majority of the board at this time would decline to move forward with either reconveyance and or pursuing an outgrant, and reevaluate that after maybe certain land use decisions occur and you're further along, and or seeing if the developer themselves pursue their private recreational outground opportunity that exists for them as well.
I think it would be well for minutes purposes just to have that on the record if you want to make a motion to, pursue option.
No action in a workshop.
Correct,
We're in a
sorry.
workshop, yeah. But we can definitely do that next meeting.
So I guess it would be of my opinion that while I do appreciate, Mr. Chairman, your what you said about the community making, putting some pressure on, I do think that it is the job of this board to lead in our community, and I think that it would be wise if we were to draft a letter to our congressional delegation asking them to fulfill their agreement of providing this recreational opportunity, and asking them to report back on what their game plan is, the tax dollars that are supposed to be allocated to the service and operation of that park comes from this community and is not being used in this community. So I think it would be good for us to write a letter asking for them to explain what their plan is, because it is in very poor repair out there. And then, so that would be kind of a modified option 3, and then option 4 at this time. And then if the River Ranch people pursue that, and if there's a way for us to be helpful without being directly involved, I can see that being as a proper course of action, and and that would alleviate the concern of our Planning and Building and Economic Development Director, Mr. McCart. It would alleviate some of the challenges there. And for the record, I think I'm the first one to officially, properly address you in that manner now. But I think that would be, I think that would be, my opinion, would be a good a route for us to take at this point with the information that we have in front of us. And thank you, Mr. Johnson, for all the effort you went through on this. I know that you put a lot of time and effort into preparing this information.
I would concur with that letter, with the addition of other parks that are being not maintained.
Wind dust.
They need to be, we need answers from the Corps of Engineers as to where this money is going that's supposed to be maintaining these. Is it because of the talk of breaching the dams, they've given up on them? Because there's no dams being breached out here, and I don't think it's going to happen. So we need these parks maintained.
Yeah, Commissioner Didier and Commissioner Brown, I might suggest, and Commissioner McCart can chime in on this a little bit. A number of our jurisdictions have similar experiences working with other recreational entities. In the case of Commissioner McCart, Director McCart, bad habits. Wes McCart, it was working on Lake Roosevelt. And folks trying to deal with the National Park Service on similar issues. I frankly was, I don't know when you all heard that Levy Park was not going to be open for the summer. I'm pretty sure they didn't have direct communication with the Board of County Commissioners about that.
100% did not.
And frankly, that's not much of a partnership. That's not much of a relationship. And so it might be something that you have conversations with the Corps about, and Wes can talk about the relationship of building that with the Lake Roosevelt and the director at the National Recreational Area. So it might be something to think about instead of even writing a letter, is to start with a conversation with trying to get them in to talk about what are their plans for 2026, since they've announced it's going to be reopened. Is that reopening every day? Is that just weekends again? What are their 2026 plans? Have conversations and engage them. And maybe it's just at the administrative level, but I think I was frankly, putting my commissioner hat on, I was a little, frankly, a little appalled that there was not, some type of relationship or communication with you all, that a major recreational facility in your county was not going to be operating in 2025, and that you read about it in a news release or an article in the paper.
So, Mr. Danzel, maybe we could do an invite to the Corps of Engineers to come present to us
For a workshop
their
meeting.
plans to reopen, and what are they going to do about the rundown Levy Park, and also Wind Dust, and all of the parks here in Franklin County.
Mr. Chairman, we can definitely invite them. I can say that in previous, when I was a commissioner myself, we had the Corps of Engineers as partners on the Kettle River, and the only thing that ever showed up was certified mail with a letter describing what you may or may not do. So I can try.
I would ask you to try and certainly invite our congressional delegation to participate with us, and I've been fairly sure.
Like just Baumgartner, do you want Hastings?
Hastings, you're dating yourself.
So commissioners,
I'm not going to.
I just made an error and I apologize.
It's new.
House.
if I could put my economic hat on for just a minute here, my new hat that you just gave me today. I have had good luck in bringing the Corps in, unlike former Commissioner Danzel. I actually did get the Brigadier General to show up to a meeting we had at the COG related to this, to issues on the Columbia River and the treaty. I have worked with the National Park Service. I think there's some good ways to make those contacts work, and I'm willing to pull some strings.
I was
to
successful
try and
in,
help
in meeting with the
that.
Lieutenant Colonel.
So I'm happy to help the administrator get that invitation going to different people, and between the two of us, maybe we're successful. But I still don't want to disagree with the administrator. Sometimes you can scream and holler all day long and they don't show up, but you never get anywhere if you don't try. So
Can I ask a question? Was that on Ricky Point and Sherman?
no, that was on the Columbia River Treaty, actually.
Yeah, but the Columbia River Treaty as it pertains to the cabins or just in general water
It was
storage?
just our area of Lake Roosevelt, yes.
Yeah, like Ricky Point and the Sherman Homes, Sherman Creek.
Yeah, I did that with the National Park Service, so, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Danzel, maybe a joint meeting of the Brigadier, the Corps of Engineer, and our representatives from the, bring them all in. Let's get a good discussion going on here.
Let's do it.
All right, you're the guy to get it done.
Yeah, I'd love to visit with them. I disappointed in their lack of communication with their partners. Would you go back a few slides? I had a question on one of your pictures.
Uh-oh.
This part right here.
Oh, here we go. Sticky
Oh.
keys, yes, I realize I hit them too fast.
That one right there.
Yeah.
So what is this right here? Do you know?
I do not know. It's not visible from either the park or the river from what I recall.
Because I thought it was,
Is their well house? I don't,
well, I thought it may be the disposal site for the, like, septage. And I didn't know as we were discussing the 50-acre site, you know, that's essentially this part, and I don't think that necessarily it would include that, but it may be necessary if it were to be a part of it. But anyways, that was just, I thought maybe you knew.
no, you don't, I don't know, no. I would assume their septage is in drain fields in the grass, I would assume. Unless they had hookups if they had hookups with a drain field, they might have then had some sort of wastewater treatment. They would have had to.
Yeah, there used to be all the way across this way, RVs would park. These were dry campsites, and then this portion had hookups where they actually were. They had water power and disposal.
Yeah,
And
if they had sewer, then they probably would have had some sort of wastewater.
yeah, this
plant.
area right here is a camper dump site where that they could, you know, you could drive your camper up and deposit your waste.
It could be old enough that they were just using drain fields even for that at that time.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I thank you for the
Thank you.
Thank you.
presentation, and
And I'll be back in front of you in a month to talk about HAPO. So
sounds good.
appraisal's underway, should be hopefully done this year. I'm meeting the new city manager this afternoon to talk about HAPO, so look forward to briefing you on that.
Thank you so much, Eric.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wes.
Takes us down to budget shortfalls presented by Mr. Danzel.
You gentlemen will recall, and the greater public will recall, that we put into place a hiring freeze, a budget shortfalls committee, so that we could deal with the continual decrease in sales tax revenue. I wanted to kind of give a little bit of an update as to where we are on that, so bear with me. This is a very short slide. I've got 10, or presentation, I got 10 slides here. Going into this, our anticipated budget shortfalls for this year were 1.26 million. In 2026, it says over $1 million, but when talking with Ryan, Tim, and Jeff in the auditor's office, closer to about $1.5 million. What are the primary drivers? Declining retail tax revenues, rising personnel costs, obligations for new communication system. And so our focus was implementing high-impact strategies for cost savings, efficiencies, improved financial management, and revenue enhancements. I'll I'll say one thing, and that is that as it was the time to get people's budgets turned in through the gravity system to Tim Anderson, it was shocking to me knowing that we're in a budget situation that we are, all the requests. So I think that we're going to have to, the board's going to have to be in a position where if you want to right-size the government and not touch the road fund, that I think it was President Reagan who said, it's like learning to protect your virtue. You just have to learn to say no. And I think that's kind of where we've stumbled into. This first strategy, as you gentlemen know, was the targeted hiring freeze. And we had a resolution within 1 week, staffing needs assessment done that were turned into the HR director. Now, why is this important and what was the impact? It does provide crucial data for restructuring and reducing expenditures, but I've always been a big believer in this. The hiring freeze is typically more successful from those you don't hear from. So the ones that go, oh, there's a hiring freeze in place, I'm not even going to try to ask for it. The folks that have asked for exceptions to the hiring freeze have been for pretty good cases, right? Like somebody's moved on and we need someone for IS or so on and so forth. So kind of a twofold strategy there. It's meant to be a preventative measure. And then I believe you gentlemen have told a couple of departments no on a couple of these. And again, it wasn't because you wanted to just say no for the sake of saying no. You're getting the cash position reports and the finances that I am, and you can tell that we need to be prudent with our finances. Strategy 2, strategic capital project review, and Wes is we're still working on this. Team actively prioritizing projects with emphasis on public safety and infrastructure integrity. I believe that capital projects, planning, and economic development go hand in hand in a lot of ways. And so for me, this is a no-brainer. The only thing that kind of threw a monkey wrench into this is that we've had some land use, quasi-judicial, closed record hearings that you all know about. And so still working with Wes on this, but kind of the idea is that we're able to have recommendations to you all about basically a list of things that we need to do and when we need to do it. This is going to happen next week, I think. I don't know for sure. I think that we're going to be able to adopt financial policies next week. A great job by the team of auditors, staff, and the accounting division, Mr. Briggs, the treasurer's office, for everybody kind of getting in on this and being able to make sure that there's no overlap and that the financial policies make sense. These financial policies will inform your decision-making as you move forward, so that when, next year and thereafter, there's going to be a part of it that calls for a certain percentage to go to the reserve fund. And there will be thresholds that if we go over, that we don't do certain things. And the reason is we want to have long-term financial viability. And it's kind of an interesting deal. So a lot of the things I get is we need to pay our people more, need to pay our people more, need to retain people. By adopting prudent financial policies, we'll be able to do that, but you can't get the cart before the horse, right? And so that's kind of part of it. But then the other part of it too, and this has been expressed to me by commissioners, all three of you, that you'd like to see the tax burden lowered on your citizens that you represent, while at the same time maintaining the road infrastructure. That's going to present a challenge because it's going to call for, not diverting any road funds. So that's something that I think that we need to work towards and have that be our overarching goal. We'll have a presentation ready and available for you. And I apologize on some of this. Some of this we've had to put on the back burner because we've had other things that have popped up, right? HRA VIBA cost review underway by county auditor, on track for completion. Another little aspect of this, and McKinsey isn't here but part of this also is dictated by our CBAs. And what is accepted and what is agreed upon, or if it goes to arbitration, mediation or arbitration, what PERC might say or what the arbitrator might say. So some of that is a little bit out of our hands. But so far, we have done a lot to, and you've seen it, where they've limited on some of the bargaining units the amount in VIBA contributions. Quarterly budget reviews, we just had one of these yesterday, and I'll get you the information on this. This is where things, really the story is told, because, and I've talked about this. I think Eric Johnson might have been the first person to talk to me about this when I was first a county commissioner. There's a difference between budget and cash position. And so that's kind of one of the things that kind of leads into something that we talked about earlier, where when folks go, well, I asked so-and-so from their department if I could use their funds, that's not acceptable. We need to be able to understand where all these expenditures are taking place for tracking purposes, but then also so that you guys can put together a budget you can justify and explain. If someone off the street asks you, you can understand it and justify it for the most part. Ongoing monitoring of revenues and expenditures to prevent mid-year deficits. That's something that we've just been engaged in and that we've been looking at. Biennial budget strategy. Now this I'm torn on. When I was in the legislature, I did this. I don't know how much of a fan I am of it, but this is one that was brought to the fold as an idea that you can reduce administrative costs and enhance strategic planning. You know, Wes McCart and I talked about that. We went back and forth, and we don't know that we agree with that. So that's a decision that's up to you. We could, Benton County certainly does, but I think that doing a yearly budget makes the most sense, and especially with a new administrative staff, because I'm going to want to go and I'm going to want to do zero-based budgeting on some of it. I want to go line item by line item and see if there's any aberrations. Probably not the whole budget, but if there's areas of concern, I think that we need to do it. And I think for at least the short term, I'd like to stay with a yearly budget process. That's again up to you gentlemen. We're prepared to do either. Revenue enhancement opportunities. Without saying the word, it's either tax people more or offload some of these properties that we don't think we need to try to bring in more revenue and come up with out-of-the-box ideas. I want to brag a little bit on our chief of the jail, who has brought in a new program that in the past was disallowed. But now they've got, and I'm going to sound stupid because I am not a tech guy, they have the ability, the inmates do, to rent tablets, rent movies as part of the commissary system. And there are counties that are really bringing in a ton of revenue with this to the tune of millions of dollars. And so I take my hat off to Chief Harmon for having the foresight to think outside the box on something like that. This one right here is ooh, I went past. You all know, because we've discussed this at length, this is ongoing, but we've already, I think, have realized some savings, and I believe we'll realize some more savings on the review of contracts and interlocal agreements and a comprehensive expenditure review. So I think that where we're at right now is where we're doing our best work is in these ILAs. I think we're streamlining some of our processes, which makes for not necessarily financial gains, but it does help when it comes to customer satisfaction and overall perception. And then finally, these ILAs are just the things that'll kill a county. And I'd like to make a mention. There was a comment made earlier, very great comment, because I think we're all worried about kids in our community, right? This doesn't mean that those services are going away. It means that we're not going to self-administer them. One of the things that had happened is the terms had become so unconducive to this board financially, you just simply couldn't afford it. Because they were, originally they were taking 10% out of grant funds, and then they wanted to take an additional, I think it was 10%, out of our current expense fund to be able to do human services, for example. So I wanted to be able to explain that a lot of times when counties might have, worked together in the past, sometimes the reason that those things split apart is it just doesn't make any more sense when it comes to the cost to indemnify at a level that we can't afford, and then just the overall cost.
So the grants that were being administered on our behalf was taking 10% of the grant funds to administer it.
Yeah.
And they were wanting an additional 10% out of current expense for a total of 20% to administer.
I believe that's correct.
Yes, but in addition to that, there was also a monthly charge.
There you go.
And there's other grants that they're administering. We're talking specifically about the homeless fund.
Sure.
So there was a monthly fee, I think, of 5,000
It
something. And then there were other grants that they were administering that also have administrative fees as well.
And do we know roughly what the 10% fee, the 10% plea, plus the monthly fee, do we know what the monthly fee percentage roughly was?
I have to get back to you. Just right off the top of my head in the middle, I probably don't know the answer to that, but I will definitely get back to you. Kind of the point of the whole thing is that I think that we understand the comment. I appreciate the comment, but when it was made, it's just that to be able to deliver these services, you also are in the position of trying to keep your roads maintained and trying to keep a hold of good help and trying to make investments potentially into a building to where we don't have to, so that we can have equity in our buildings and not throw away rent. And so there are just certain things that if we're going to get there, we're not going to be able to be taken advantage of by other counties who are asking for these excessive costs. Thank you, Jeff, for chiming in. So that one I think is the most important right now, by the way. Overall outlook and next step, we have a commitment to be proactive and decisive. I need to be getting with Wes McCart on a more regular basis. In fact, Teresa, I think maybe what we'll do is set up a weekly, regular, recurring meeting with Mr. McCart. The structured approach and adherence to timeline yielding tangible progress. I'm proud of this. We're going to have the financial policies on the books. We got the reserve policies on the books. We've got the capital asset inventory record policy on the books. We got the procurement policy, both state and federal, on the books. If you looked at our exit conference today, there was no major deficiencies in our internal controls. These are all good things. So I think we keep continue with where we're going, and that we are able to mirror this and match this up and be done with this right when we're getting ready to go into our budget season. Then you take the overlay of what our strategic plan is and what your 5 or 8 overarching goals, and then you are able to kind of plug this in too. How are we going to get there with the financial position we're in, and while leaving the road fund alone? Because that's kind of the number one thing I've heard from all 3 commissioners. That's my presentation for today. I knew that we were going to be a little bit longer, and I know that people have got other things to go to, but did you guys have any questions about that?
Commissioners?
Didn't really have questions, but I did have a couple of comments. I believe that it would be prudent for us to evaluate and potentially implement a salary freeze in this county. I know that that's we've already implemented a hiring freeze, and I think a salary freeze may be a prudent step that we take. So would love to have some evaluation and potential recommendation on that. And then another thing that I'd love to have is if we would ask the port to come and visit with us, have an understanding of what their game plan is. It is my understanding that they have intention of purchasing farmland out in the middle of our county. I'd love to have an understanding from them of why and what their intention is, what their plan is. Some of the actions that they have taken in the recent past have been substantially impactful to the revenue that the county receives, and that specifically being the tax increment financing area that they implemented. And so we'd just love to know from them. So we'd like to see us reach out to them and invite them to come and visit with us in a workshop setting and kind of explain to the direction that they're headed and what some of their goals are, and that'd be helpful.
And can I make an announcement that's, I think, you're going to enjoy? You might have noticed I was going between phones here. The National Director of Rural Development for USDA, David Matthews, reached me today, and he wants to make Pasco, Washington, one of 5 throughout the entire country hub meetings on March 26th of next year. And it's going to include all the regional everybody and even the bigwigs from Washington, D.C. to fly out to help with our predicament. And when it comes to funding, rural development, they're going to bring the Small Business Administration. They're going to bring folks from all over the entire federal family, up and including to the big ask is to see if we can get Secretary of Agriculture here. So I just wanted to, that was exciting news as we were going through our day. March 26th, put it on your calendar. And they asked me if I would be available to be part of the planning committee, and I accepted. So I'll be planning this out with some of our federal partners and keeping you posted. But I thought that was a great stroke of
Well done.
luck there, so thank you.
Is there any other comments or questions? I'd just say great presentation, and you're staying on the tip of the spear here for Franklin County, and I appreciate it. Thank you. So with that, we have public comment. Is there anybody for public comment on the 2 workshop?
I appreciated both of those workshops, and I'm very excited about that recent news. With regard to Levy Parks and Parks and Recreation, I think we need to kind of think of those separately, cautiously from the HAPO Center situation, because what I didn't hear is this ranch. What is it called? The ranch. Anyway, if they've already done a study and it looks like it's a profitable business, then that probably would bring revenue to us. I would have liked to have known how much revenue and how much they've done in terms of studying that out. I mean, why would they invest in putting a whole golf course and a restaurant and bar? I mean, Kennewick, I think, is losing their marina. And my biggest concern is they're going to talk about the fish. And the problems with the fish are not in Washington State, they're in Idaho. Okay. 80% of the juveniles don't reach the first dam. So the problems with fish are not here. And it keeps being leveraged. And my greatest concern is it does take 6 months to change the sprinkler head at Columbia Park because of Corps of Engineers and tribal. And just to have an event over there, which I did a number of years ago, I had to jump through all these hoops and, of course, get my event insurance and all that. But I had every single person running for office except the land commissioner and Kim Wyman come. And it was incredibly complicated when it should not be. I do believe that is one of the gems of Franklin County, is our ability to recreate. I think that is what brings people here to live and to go up on their boats and stop in their wine and dine tours or whatever. So I would like to know more about how well the ranch company put that proposal together, how much projected revenue is. And I do believe it, Mr. Bauman kind of redirected that. People aren't going to know to go rally for that. They're not going to know about it. They do expect the county leadership to stimulate that. So I think having a meeting and doing it a little differently was a positive outcome for that. And as far as roads, I've talked to a couple farmers myself. When we take bids and we take the lowest bid, I want to have really good specs on what kind of, chipping and depth and aggregate material that goes into that road. I will be looking for that, because that's what's going to make it last a long time. You have the heaviest equipment on our rural roads, and I want them to have good rural roads. But if we take the lowest bid, we're wasting money because it doesn't last. So I will be watching for that. Thank you.
Anybody else for public comment? Anybody on the phone? So at this time, I will adjourn the workshop, and thank you for the presentations.